Good afternoon, Nigerians. You are welcome to another edition of Editors Forum on Galaxy Television. I am Layo Shubo for Lorisho. And let me be the first to say a happy Independence Day ahead to you all, because of course tomorrow is Nigeria's 63rd independence. And before we just get to that, it's been a wonderful week with a lot of happenings, starting from Monday with a fire outbreak at the Supreme Court in the Federal Capital Territory, and with a promise from the Supreme Court that that incident is not going to affect the presidential election petitions proceedings or court proceedings whatsoever. And still on Monday, we saw the Election Petition Tribunal in Lagos confirm and affirm the election of Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu of Lagos State. And moving on to Tuesday, the Senate declared Mr. Yemi Cardoso as the Central Bank of Nigeria governor, CBN governor, alongside 4 other deputy governors, and a lot of issues and happenings that sprung up over the week. Talking about the NLC and the TUC coming around to say, you know what, October 3rd, we are going on an indefinite strike. And eventually, in Ondo State, we saw a power tussle between the Ondo State governor and the deputy governor, talking about impeachment, with a notice served from the House of Assembly in Ondo State to the deputy governor. And that sprung up a lot of protests in the state. So we are going to start on that note, looking at the power tussle or leadership tussle in Ondo State. Just a quick reaction to that. And with me in the studio, I have 2 amazing guests, professionals, of course, in this field of journalism. And as I always say, we are here to have solution-centered discussions. I mean, a lot is going on in the country, a lot just for us to react, to complain, without preferring solution. But on the Editors Forum, we are going to be having solution-centered discussions that will make our nation a great place and the world at large to be better. And to do that with me today, I have, let me start to say, okay, he writes the policy in the Nation newspaper, and he's the editorial page editor. I'm talking of Mr. Sioni. Thank you very much for being here.
It's my pleasure.
He's my first time guest, so I really look forward to seeing more of you and having a very amazing session with you today. Okay. And on my far right opposite, I have Mr. Ayo. I want to get the middle name, Ozoye. Oyoze. I apologize. Mr. Ayo Oyoze Baje is the president, the Guild of Public Affairs Analysts Nigeria. Thank you so much for being here.
It's a great pleasure. And
as you can see, he's so ready. I mean, oh my God, he came with a flag. Oh, you hid that from me. Okay.
Yes, I did.
Okay, thank you very much for being here. I look forward to a very amazing conversation. So let's start on that note of Ondo State, you know, the leadership tussle in Ondo State. What do you think is happening? What do you think? I'll start from you, Mr. Oni. What do you think is the issue looking at that situation?
Let me start with the generic appraisal of the situation. It actually underlies what I believe is a fundamental flaw in our constitution. You see almost across the board, deputy governors have become somewhat endangered species in our political system. Whether it's in Edo, that's also equally ranked with the same problem. Of course, the details are different, okay? But ultimately, what you see is that it's the state of unequal power relations between the governors and their deputies, although elected theoretically on the same ticket, but then you have so much personalization of power on the part of governor to the detriment of the deputies, in such a manner as to sometimes reduce them to almost worse than spare tires. Okay, before now we used to talk about spare tires, but as it's increasingly becoming the case, it's no longer a case of spare tires, but almost irrelevant tires. Because now here was the case. It's very tragic if you look at the Ondo scenario. The governor has been out of the country for some time. All the while, even while he was away, the deputy governor, who is supposed to be the acting governor, was effectively denied the power of the office. He couldn't even summon ordinary state cabinet meetings.
But there was a letter to that effect from the
that was official. See, there's a difference between what is official and what is in reality. On ground. Of course, he released because that was mandated by the constitution. He had no choice in the matter. To the extent that he left the country beyond certain periods, he is duty bound to hand over to his deputy. As we saw, that was one of the lessons we learned from the Yaradua Jonathan scenario, and that was one of the amendments in the last constitution, which inserted there that if you are going to be away for longer than so and so period, then you are mandatorily duty bound to hand over to a deputy. That's exactly what happened. But what happened after? The man could not even summon the state cabinet meetings because the loyalty is to the governor, who was somewhere far away in Germany receiving medical treatment. And so when he came back, of course, a lot of things happened while he was away that some people interpreted, or rightly or wrongly, as disloyalty to the governor. And then, of course, that led to all of those things happening. First, the removal of his aides, okay, who were said to be leaking some things. Okay, it's probable that there are some things that were happening all along. Okay, because don't forget, these are political actors, each of them jostling for, and don't forget, election on those things will soon be on the cards. Yes. So everybody jostling for positions, and so it's a question of which one had a better advantage to upstage the other. So what we are having now today is a very tragic case, particularly considering the fact that both of them are supposed to be members of the same party, the governing party. But it's also heartwarming now that the party at the national level, they have decided to intervene to bring the crisis to some kind of resolution. But it is unfortunate, and that's why I think the National Assembly might want to look again back at the letters of the law to see if there are things that could still be done, not to reduce these governors, these powerful functionaries, to some kind of endangered species. Because what it does is to detract from even the legitimacy of that office. Because oftentimes you see that some of these governors are even far more powerful than deputy governors. Okay, so you say that you want, or maybe they might well just as well abrogate the office, and maybe the governor will now have the right to pick anybody as his deputy from among his cabinet members. But whatever is worth, if the constitution says we must have a deputy governor elected on the platform, I think let it be so also in function, not to reduce one to what we are seeing happening, where they have become more or less like, you see, they exist at the whim of the governors. And don't forget, the deputy governor becomes powerful when the man dies. So there's always that inbuilt tension that the man can only take over my seat if I'm either dead or incapacitated. And so because his own fortune depends on my own misfortune, then I have to ensure that he doesn't even get there. He does not have that power or that influence to be able to also upstage me. So that's the kind of power play playing on, and I think it's really, really unfortunate to the extent that it undermines the very serious nature of the office and the job that needs to be done. The job which is about delivering the public good to the ordinary citizen of this country.
Okay, I would like us to go on a short commercial break. When we return, we'll still continue on it because I have a question for Ms. Baje. To you, Mr. Baje. So he mentioned the party, these people are in the same party. So could it be that even the party itself, could it be that there are crises in the party leading to this kind of situation? Because, I mean, both of them came on the same ticket from that party. And although they are there to serve the people, they also have loyalty to the party. So what do you have to say concerning that?
Thank you very much for the question. I think what we can see really playing out here, one, the issue of the state governor, not just Akeredolu, several others, exhibiting what we call the personalized political power. One of the things that some of us have been agitating for is the need to take a critical look at the 1999 Constitution as amended, because there are some loopholes, there are some hitches. And we have seen that. How many deputy governors have ever taken over from their governors? I mean, if they are interested in contesting for the governorship. That also shows us that they don't share in the same vision in terms of whatever the ethics or whatever the program policies of the party really plays out. But when you consider the ping pong blame game between the two, just as you also have had in Edo State and all the rest, before the deputy apologized, although the situations may be a little different, what we now see that is characterizing our own political structure is that of too much powers at the hands of the state governor at the expense of the. But what concerns us and what should really worry us is the effect, the negative effect all this has to do on delivering good governance to the people. Because that is the aspect that really concerns us. So, as he rightly pointed out, the way forward is for the National Assembly to take a critical look, an in-depth analysis of what has been playing out, and then, for instance, they have to look at the laws guiding, the functions of the deputy governor, whether when the governor is hail and hearty or otherwise. But like I said, the painful aspect is that the people, they bear the brunt of all these political issues. So we should do away with such things going forward.
You mentioned that it shows that they don't share in the same vision.
Exactly.
But can we say in Nigeria that political parties have vision and ideologies? Do political parties in Nigeria even have? Because in other nations, we know what this party stands for, and you don't see them even going decamping, so to say, from one place to another.
Exactly.
So can we say that it's happening in Nigeria? Do we have anything like a shared vision of a party, or it's just for them to be in power and be the one ruling the nation?
For me, I would say this upfront. I don't think the problem is so much about the vision of the party. You see, every party comes to office with some kind of blueprint of what they intend to do. See, that's not the problem all of the time. It's not always the problem. The problem is about the character of the man who is supposed to drive the vision. His own sense of self-worth vis-a-vis his perception of how people should relate with him. Check across the 36 states. There is no single state that you can point to today, with probably the exception of one or two, where the House of Assembly is supposed to be an independent organ of government, is not subservient to the governor.
Not even to the government, to the governor.
To the governor. So you find them, as a matter of fact, before the governor made the request, they would have gone ahead to even go over to please the governor. Now, the governor did not initiate, in Ondo we are talking about, the governor did not initiate the impeachment. It was the House of Assembly.
Yes.
It was the House of Assembly.
And they didn't give a reason. It was just gross misconduct.
It was nebulous. You see, because the law allows them to define what is misconduct. It could be as much as, I don't like your face. So, the issue is not so much about, come to think of it, that will not be his first deputy governor. Actually, the earlier one was almost threatened with impeachment before the court stopped it. Ajayi, what's his name again? The man who ran with Akewu during the first time. The man there was also an attempted impeachment on the basis of what? Disloyalty. So, what does that say? Either he says something about the man's judgment of the character of the people that he works with. Because if at every time you change your wife, you say my wife is not good enough, I change. The next thing I change. Then the problem will not be the wife, but as a matter of fact, people will begin to look at you and say, is it possible that you are the problem? So, but like I said, the issue is the way you see, there are cultural elements in all of these things. It goes back to our history and some of the cultures, particularly in Yoruba land. I am aware of Yoruba land, for instance, where the man who is supposed to succeed, take over from the Yoruba, he had to live somewhere far away, because not too close to the palace. Because so long as he's there, you look like this kind of entrenched systems there. So the same way here, our deputies, some of these governors are so uncomfortable with having deputies, because the idea of having a deputy means is almost co-equal, only to the extent that he cannot just they don't see, there's almost a psychological resentment of that idea. And I think if there's something that the law can do, maybe we can use the law to address in that area, so that this idea of personalizing power, you know that, because that's the word, personalizing power and the institutions of state. Some governors will tell you, my money. They're talking about the treasury.
Can you imagine that?
Okay, of the state.
Yes.
So until we begin to demystify even the office and the institution itself, so that it becomes accessible to the ordinary people, we won't get far, because there's so much myth, so much grandiose around the cult of power in Nigeria, that the person that is there, everybody, you can imagine a man was ill, he went abroad for treatment, and then there was an effective instrument of state transferring the authority of government to him, and yet he could not use that authority to bring the members of cabinet to table to say, okay, let's have a meeting. In fact, I suspect that if he dared to call some of them will run away and say, just to show that they are loyal to the man whose state of health they are not even in a position to know. It's all in the hand of God. So until we address that part of our psychology, we won't get far.
Okay, and on that note, we'll be moving to the main, or say major topic of the day, and that is Nigeria's 63rd independence. So how has it been? 63 years old, a man of 63. I mean, is no longer a young, cannot be called a young person. Although many men would like to say, no, I'm young, even at 70, Baba no go die.